It's time for a review. Welcome to Views and Paradox. This is going to be just a simple review of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I finally managed to make out to cinema in a rare occurrence since the birth of my daughter. I don't get to do it very often. Uh, this review will contain probably mild spoilers, nothing too major, and I know it's a story that's very old, but not a lot of people know it very well, so I'll try not to give away anything that's too kind of that feels spoilery, but I will talk a little bit about the cast and perhaps name some of who the characters are. I also want to start by saying right off the bat, also, I gave this film 4 to 5 stars. I mostly liked it. I had a few kind of qualms with it that I wanted to talk about, but I also wanted to talk about what I think is good about the film. Also, I want to put out there that I'm not like a stan for Christopher Nolan, but I would say I'm a fan. I've seen most of his films. I couldn't get through following, and I skipped Oppenheimer. I know that one did really well. I just kind of, I don't know, wasn't that interested for whatever reason. Although I can see how people have kind of addressed this as like somewhat of a pseudo sequel or follow up to Oppenheimer. That's very clear because I know what the subject matter of Oppenheimer is. So I just want to get that out of the way. I've seen his movies. I like his movies generally. Um, and I think this one ranks fairly high in his resume. I'm not sure. This isn't a ranking video, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Anyway, to the film, it's well paced, as most Nolan films are. I do think there's a little bit of slog when we get to this scene that's pictured right behind me. I feel like it's not really Nolan's fault that the Odyssey is an Odyssey, but it feels like this particular encounter that they have, and you see it in the trailer. Some there's like these guys in big metal suits. It felt like one too many to me. I like if I could have cut one thing out of the film, it probably would have been the scene. Although it was like cool effects wise. Um, but overall, I found it pretty well paced. The length didn't really bother me. I thought uh, most of the runtime was warranted, like I said, with a couple small exceptions. It does the Christopher Nolan thing where it jumps around in time a lot, and we start sort of closer to the end. And I was kind of wondering how he would handle, the mythology of it all. He doesn't seem to like to lean into the supernatural, and he has a nice sort of uh, out in this film built in that we're getting the story as Odysseus sort of recollects it himself, and so we can kind of consider him to be an unreliable narrator because he's the only witness to the events, and as he's sort of coming back to his senses, I think there's a level of plausible deniability in the fantastical that is very sort of par for the course with Nolan, right? Like The Prestige is like not a movie about magic, right? It's a movie about people kind of playing at magic, and it's subverting those intentions. And everything he does is like, right, people use the word grounded with Nolan. And this one, I think, uses the mechanism of storytelling uh, to do that, which is an interesting choice, but it also allowed him to like kind of lean more fantastical than I was expecting, which I really like. The Cyclops scene was done really well. Um, the the whirlpool, Charybdis, and the creature, uh, the other creature, and the sirens. Those were all kind of. It was nice to see how he did those, right? Sort of blending in this practicality using sort of these like heavier visual effects when necessary, but also, man, do the visual effects look good. Like obviously there's some CGI witchcraft going on, uh, but they've clearly blended it with a lot of practical effects, and a lot of practical techniques and a lot of camera trickery, which is kind of nice to see. A lot of times, I think in modern movies, they lean so much on the CGI that they don't try to like use the camera to hide things. And this movie does a lot of that. It's really using the camera to like get around uh, some of the fantastical, like to keep it more grounded. And some of it does look CGI free. The Cyclops doesn't look completely CGI free, but like when they get the close ups, his skin looks really good. It looks very tactile. Um, they use lighting a lot to kind of help with all of that. So I thought that was all really well done. I did not see it in IMAX. I'm no longer in New York City, so I don't have easy access to an IMAX. And I only felt like I was missing something during a couple of scenes. Um, During sort of the Charybdis whirlpool scene, I felt like I I felt like things were happening off camera that I couldn't see. And there were a couple of other moments, but mostly he's fairly sort of centered in the middle portion of the frame. Like obviously we're getting heads cut off during close-ups that would not otherwise be cut off, things like that. But it really didn't bother me for the most part, seeing it in sort of the standard format. I hope when it goes digital that they have the option to see it in the proper ratio because I would like to watch it that way. Um, some other thoughts I had. The acting is really good across the board. I think for me, standouts in acting, I have to give a shout out to Samantha Morton, who plays Cersei. I think, for me personally, her performance was the most interesting, um, and just sort of the way she holds herself, the way she delivers lines, the movement involved in her scenes. That whole sequence with Cersei, for those who don't know the story, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a little bit hard to watch, but it's incredibly well done. It's a little grotesque. It's one of the more grotesque scenes in the film, but it was also the scene that I like couldn't kind of look away from. Uh, the effects happening in the scene are really fantastic. Kind of using the camera tricks I was talking about to a great effect, um, and just yeah, it's hard to talk about it without getting into too much detail. But Samantha Morton and her whole sequence of them finding Cersei was really a stand up for me. Kind of made me squirm a little, but also I was just kind of like in awe of what I was watching. Other stand up performances, I think Anne Hathaway is really giving it her all. Like she's really putting a lot out there. Um, she does a very sincere and like kind of emotionally vulnerable performance. Lupita Nyong'o is great. She doesn't get a ton of screen time, but she uses that screen time so well. I really liked her performance, and I really also liked Elliot Page has a scene in the middle. Um, so mild spoiler, they kind of go to the border of Hades. They go to the underworld, uh, and Odysseus talks with Elliot Page's character, whose name I forget off the top of my head, but his performance in that scene is one of my favorites. It's There's something about it that's very compelling and I think very interesting. Uh, Matt Damon is good. I don't think his performance has a lot of like give me an Oscar kind of moments to it. Um, there is sort of the scene where he sees the siren and the follow up to that, and there's a speech that he gives to Anne Hathaway near the end of the movie that's very well delivered. And in general, he plays sort of the weary General King very well. Um, I feel like he doesn't quite have the slyness that Sean Bean had when he played Odysseus. I think I really loved Sean Bean as Odysseus in Troy. Troy is not as good a movie as this overall, I would say, but uh, but it does have some standout performances in it, and I think Sean Bean's is really compelling. Matt Damon does a very good job though in this movie. He's not. Uh, he's not bad by any means. There was sort of an issue I had, not so much with the acting itself throughout this movie, but with the blocking, right? I feel like Nolan's very good at a lot of things, but when it comes to blocking, like he's no Spielberg. Um, there's just a lot of times where characters are kind of just standing talking to each other. They don't have any business, they don't have any movement. Um, Charlize, the scenes with Charlize Theron, like there are these shots where she's just standing there, um, and it's a little uninteresting at times, the blocking, where people are just kind of sitting talking to each other or standing talking to each other. Zendaya is uh, as beautiful and compelling as she is, she's always just kind of sitting around or standing around. Um, Even Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson's great as the villain. He plays this kind of weaselly suitor very, very well. But again, I just felt like he didn't have like good motion. This is one of the reasons I like the scene with Cersei so much, is because she had kind of this theatricality to her movements that I thought played really well. And I just wanted maybe a little more of that out of this film. John Leguizamo was another standout. He's really good. Um, he he plays a mentor, not mentor, the, the character mentor, but he plays a mentor to uh, the son of Odysseus, and he's very good in that role. And he's like the loyal servant of Odysseus that stays behind, and he's just very likable. And I think he was a character that needed to be likable for us to kind of get attached to him. So I thought that that was very well done. Um, and the the messaging of the film was decent, right? Thematically, I mentioned earlier, I referenced earlier this being a follow up to Oppenheimer, right? They definitely compare the Trojan War to something like Hiroshima, right? They have devastated and broken the world by sacking Troy, um, and Odysseus is, coming to terms with that. Is like this is his reckoning for that, and I think that there is this sense that like the fantastical elements of the film, the Cyclops, the giants, the encounter with Cersei, the sirens, like the really fantastical things that the Odyssey is known for. These seem like manifestations of post traumatic stress, right? And of just someone grappling with what they've done, right? He was loyal to his king, to Agamemnon, and he wanted to go home, right? And he's always kind of made these decisions based on how can I get the most amount of men home, right? But there is a cost to engaging with the war at all, right? And to being clever and to being the one who kind of uh, comes up with a terrible solution, right? And this movie is a lot of him grappling with that. Uh, so overall, 4 to 5 stars. I was leaning 4.5. I just felt like some of the shortcomings. One other thing I have to mention is the Bard character played by Travis Scott. I don't know anything about Travis Scott other than he's a rapper, um, potentially problematic or something. I'm not sure. A lot of people seemed upset that he was cast. I didn't really research into the drama. But what I'll say is that I was disappointed with the use of that character. Not necessarily with his performance, but with the concept of his performance. My problem with it is that it wasn't musical. Like, the point of the bard and of these songs is that they're put into song so that they are one, entertaining, and two, memorable, so that the bards can remember the songs because they have a rhythm to them, and people want to listen to them because they're enjoyable to listen to. I've heard samples of people sort of reciting the Odyssey in ancient Greek, and it has a very musical element to it. It feels like a song, and anytime he was kind of uh, singing his songs, it just felt like, you know, a really bad night at like the public poetry forum. But like, I feel like even that kind of doesn't do it justice. Just very flat, right? He would like bang the staff in between in between a line or a stanza, uh, and it just didn't feel like it had a rhythm or a push to it. Like I liked it as a device to cut back to Troy and to like show us that, um, but I didn't like the choice to not make it more musical, right? Especially if you're gonna get somebody who's, a lyricist, and a rapper, right? The whole point of rapping is that it has a musicality to it, and I felt like that was a wasted opportunity. Um, so that was kind of a big ding. Um, Sort of feeling a little long in the middle was a ding against it, and sort of just the lack of interesting blocking. But the script is solid, I think. The cast is really good. Uh, the visuals are, he likes these very barren landscapes for the most part, and it's an aesthetic choice that maybe isn't one I would make, but they are beautiful all the same. And the tactile quality of the effects is very apparent, right? And I do kind of wish I'd been able to see it in IMAX, and I hope to be able to see it in the final format. Anyway, that's my review. 4 to 5 stars. I'm John in Paradox on Letterboxd if you want to follow me there. I want to start kind of cataloging my movies there. Maybe I'll do more reviews. If you like this one, give it a like, give it a share to encourage me to do more. And, uh, until next time, enjoy the movies. Hopefully, we get some more good ones. Maybe I'll do this again when Dune comes out.